What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today we picked up something else. This is a 2014 Scarab 195, and it's not bad. It's got 300 hours on it, and pretty much I bought it from the original owner that said he was out on the water, and basically what happened was the thing just shut off on him, and then it tried to kick on again, and then it just died. So I went to go look at this thing. I tried to crank it over, and it is a very slow crank. And if you guys know what that means, it almost sounds like a bad supercharger, you know, holding up, so bent shaft, anything along those lines. But let's take this cover off and see what this looks like. So definitely one of the cleaner boats I've worked on. I mean, yes, it's a little dirty, but relatively clean at the same time. Now, this was unfortunately a saltwater boat. Yeah, and by the way, these shocks are broken, so a little bit of a pain. But 250 horsepower, BRP. It does have dual batteries with the Noco 2-time onboard charger. But what you guys are gonna see is what I mean when it comes to this. So when I go to crank this thing, which I'm not gonna crank it for long, so just to show you guys what exactly this sounds like. So we got 303 hours. Now if I crank this, that sounds a lot like a locked up supercharger. So let's jump into this and see, once we get this cat off, if we can get this to turn over. So one thing, my PCV is gone, and that is all oil from this PCV valve. So this PCV valve is going to have to be replaced. Unfortunately, I don't know the part numbers on them, so either way we're going to be replacing it because, or pulling it off, because we have the supercharger bolt right down there that's completely disgusting. And I think I see a spark plug somewhere down there too. Anyway, let's keep going. Alright guys, I did have to cut, so I got the back bolt out. I did have to cut the front bolt out. It was just way too rusted. And with the O2 sensor, the exhaust, it is literally just a nightmare to do. So I have it cut. Bolts should just come right out. All right, so cat is ready to come out for the most part. I have the manifold unbolted, so that should just come off like this, hopefully. Yep, there she goes. But I have this strap undone, which is going to the water box. I have this strap for the manifold, and now it's just a matter of actually walking it off the bracket. Well, we're loose. Now I just gotta actually get this cat out, and then we can get to the supercharger. think that was officially the last one. Alright guys, now that we have the monstrosity of a cat converter out, definitely have some room. There's definitely going to be some cleaning in here. Also debating removing that stupid resonator, just to kind of make it a little cleaner down here. But now we could at least access our supercharger. So I'm going to pull this and we'll see if it's locked up. All right. Unfortunately, that charger actually seems healthy. So, next thing is we're probably gonna have to pull the pump. And if it's not the pump, then unfortunately this engine actually might be bad. So let's go to the pump next. And I'm also just gonna, since I have this out, I mean I was gonna do it anyway, going to be rebuilding the supercharger. So anyway, yeah, but honestly it feels good. Still have resistance, it's not wobbly at all, there's no play in the shaft. So let's remove the jet pump and see if it'll turn over even better. All right. I just want to see if this thing will actually turn over without the supercharger. So just out of curiosity, let's try it. That's still slow. Okay. So next thing is going to be the pump, and honestly, if it is a spun bearing inside the engine, which I mean it's possible, you know, then it is what it is. I'm already halfway there from pulling the thing apart. You know, there really isn't much more, but if it comes down to that, we'll jump into that next. But let's pull the pump. Alright guys, well, we're in the pump, so let's remove all the bolts and let's see if it's the pump possibly locking it up. Wouldn't be surprised if this thing was pretty much seized on there. Well guys, unfortunately, we are going to be replacing this engine. So just so you guys know, the rule when it comes to these boats, right? You have to start with the supercharger or jet pump, whatever you decide. Then you have to jump into the other. If it's not either of those, it's definitely something internal. So we know the pump is good. We know the supercharger is good. So unfortunately, this baby is going to have to be pulled. So yeah, my guess is, I mean, I did check the oil filter. There was some bronze in there. So that typically means, unfortunately, bearings. My guess is it probably spun. So we're going to yank this out. I mean, it's a 300-hour block. I'm probably just going to, I mean, we will tear it down at one point. Probably not in this video, but I am just going to get a new block for this. And then hopefully after that, should be good to go. So let's start disassembling. Time to drain some coolant. Forgot to pull the cap, but now we're draining quick. All right, guys, now that we have the coolant drained, let's start stripping off the whole wiring harness, the intake manifold, the coolant lines, the drive shaft, blah, 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 blah. Let's do it. All right, guys, so we have our grounds loose. Obviously didn't disconnect our exhaust manifold hoses yet. Get it when we pull it out. Drive shaft out, carbon seal out. Obviously this one I didn't have to cut, which I'm definitely happy about. Coolant lines disconnected. The 3 motor mount bolts are removed. Let's get this poor old locked up engine out of this boat and let's drop in the new one. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, visually, definitely corroded. Completely corroded. But I'm gonna guess it's something internal. All the oil is because of the PCV valve getting stuck or broken. Basically, next thing, we're gonna get everything swapped over to the new engine. And we're gonna get the inside of the bilge all cleaned up. Let's keep going. All right, guys, after a lot of time and a lot of scrubbing, I mean, still have some work to do, but big difference. So what I did was I did remove the resonator. Now that's bypassed. Yeah, the big bulky stupid plastic box on the hot exhaust just on any Sea-Doo is just garbage. But besides that, I think we're almost ready to pretty much get the engine in. I'm just waiting on a few parts for that, like OEM flywheel bolts and or ARP I should say, and we'll get everything swapped over and hopefully drop it in. Let's do it. All right, first things first, I just wanted to test the spot and that looks pretty nice. So let's give this poor dull 10-year-old boat, well maybe 11, a little bit of a little TLC and try to shine this baby up. Alright guys, time to show you that if you just look past all of this crap, and that's exactly what it is. I'm gonna give this a nice wipe down, get it nice and clean, and then we're gonna start sanding this thing. Alright guys, so 600 on the random, going dry. Let's do it. I'm going to touch up this later because, you know, just the angle and everything you're going to dig, especially on a polisher. And yeah, it's just, this side is just heavily oxidized. So just going to keep ripping through this with this, and we'll see how well it turns out at the end. So you can see in the nose, or in the keel, there's parts that are more heavy that I just can't get in there with the sander. So I am going to hand sand this section, and then we're gonna hit this with the next grit, which is gonna be 800. Alright guys, cutting time. So now that we wiped all the dust off, I'm gonna apply a decent amount of heavy to this. So when you guys are wiping, you're gonna see some streaks. That's fine. It'll come out with the polisher, especially on black and just dark colors in general. But as you guys can see, I mean, I didn't even really wipe all of it yet. But that's pretty glassy. So just gonna continue the rest of this, and then I'll show you guys the finished result. So that is a shine. Glass, baby. Okay. So that's after a polish. I didn't polish the bottom yet. But, I mean, you once again compare the difference. So I did strip off all of the glorified electrical tape that was on this, which it looks terrible, but you compare it to this, and now we finally have the deep black back. So we are going to, I am going to probably ceramic coat this thing because it's going to need it, especially up here. It is going to completely fade, but I'm gonna rip through the rest of this boat and we'll keep going. All right, guys, so pretty much the last time I ever trust anyone with an engine rebuild, I did buy something off of eBay, and it was supposed to be a rebuild engine, and I was like, you know what, let's do it, get it in, and the thing is leaking like crazy from the valves, from the rings. I was like, screw this. I returned it, and I reached out to my boy Chris at Eastside Powersports. Thank you. And now we have a rebuilt, beautiful Scarab engine. So, huge shout out to Eastside Powersports. He's rebuilt so many engines for me, and honestly, it always comes back like you can eat off it. Everything is extremely clean, documented, leak down test, compression test, you name it. If you guys mention my name, he will give you a discount, so keep that in mind. Thank you again, Chris. I'm gonna be wearing your shirt for the rest of this video, and let's keep going and let's get this baby back in the boat. And we're dropped. So now everything's pretty basic from here on out. Some cooling lines, exhaust, so on and so on. Going to be replacing the intercooler to a fizzle, hopefully removing the water box. We'll see how that goes. For now, it's just going to stay like that, and I'll explain why that water box might be coming out. So let's keep going. All right, guys, now that we have the motor landed, let's bolt it up, check alignment, and go from there. Well, that is not correct. And as you guys can see, that's pretty far off. So let's get this adjusted. It's going to take some play with the 3 motor mounts. It looks like the back has to drop a little bit, and maybe even the front. So let's make these adjustments and then we'll check it again. After a lot of playing around, alignment set. So now we are in the PTO and it slides right in. So what we're gonna do first, get our coolant lines on, get our drive shaft in, PTO bellow, and our carbon seal, get all that buttoned up, then we'll start slapping this together. All right, so PTO bellow on, we have our ground that goes right to the block down underneath. It's a 17 mil. Then you have your starter cable, that's tight. Dielectric grease on that. That is a number 10. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna flop our intake manifold on. We do have new gaskets. So you wanna just try to get all of your wiring right. So you have your crank position sensor, your stator,
and also your knock. So you want to get those pretty, I guess, close to where they're going to be sitting, which is right about there. So as we flip this on, I'll show you guys some connectors that you want to do before you actually bolt it up. So let's do it. Okay. So you want to connect your oil pressure sensor, which is underneath the manifold. That's one of the main things. And then we're going to put our dipstick right here. So that'll sit in like that. And then it should be pretty good to actually just make sure everything's clear. You're going to put it on your two rubber bushings underneath. It'll sit in there. And then this you may have to play with just a little. So it's going to sit and clip in, and then as you push down, it'll go like that. Then you're going to grab your E8s, and then I'm just going to screw all these in. Sit like that. Each injector good to go. Now the only things really left are the connectors in the back. Alright guys, so I do overfill the coolant pretty much to the top of the bottle because the bubbles, I mean, yes, you can pretty much drain it out of the ride plate, but you do want to, I mean, you're still going to get bubbles in the system no matter what. It still has to pump through. So this coolant's going to go pretty quick, and then after that first run or the first warm-up, that's when you're going to pretty much top this off. So for now, we are at max, so we're just going to pop the cap back on and let's keep going. Alright guys, so pretty much coolant stopped off. I still have to put the oil filter in. I do have oil in it. As you can see, I got two ECUs, and I'll explain why I have two ECUs in a minute and if this even works. I did program it with buds and it seems to be working, but I didn't start or crank it yet. But basically the reason why I did that is I'm trying to delete the O2 sensors and the massive cat that sits in the back of this boat, because it is just big, bulky, and just one less failure point. So going to put the oil filter in, put the drive shaft in with the pump temporarily just to see if it starts, and we're gonna run open water box. Let's keep going. So pump and drive shaft in temporarily. Now pretty much ready to try to start this thing without an O2 sensor.
Oh boy. Let's give it a shot. Well, deep breaths, everybody. Deep breaths. I wouldn't be as nervous as it wasn't for the new ECU. But let's see if it cranks. Huh. Okay. First things first, I have no idea if the battery's even really charged. But I do want to just crank this over just a couple times prior to anything. So let's just crank it. Get something pumping. Now, the question's going to be, are we going to fire? And once again, we're kind of open header at this point. Moment of truth, everybody. That's Smokey and the Bandit. So now we know. Let's put the water box on this and actually start it up. Well, that definitely opens it up. So now that we have all that out, really what we're gonna have to do is try to figure out exactly how to route our water box and the exhaust outlet. So typically it is on any of the Sea-Doos, it comes up, around, and out the other side. Unfortunately on this one, it goes out the same side as the, well, I guess the same side as where the water box would go. So we're gonna have to make something, unless I have some type of tubing laying around, to come up into the water box. So that's the new outlet. So let's keep doing it. Okay, recap. Water box redirected, the exhaust, the resonator is deleted. Fizzle will be in eventually. Gonna do something with those charge pipes. I'm not crazy about how they're routed, but everything seems to be together. So back to the moment of truth. Will we start? That is a yes. right, guys, so did wind up swapping the trailer and did this in the river, so it was really tight, so I really didn't water test this, but I did run it. It did run perfectly fine, no codes. But now we're going to the finishing touches. Let's do it. All right, guys, so pretty much now that I know the boat runs without the O2 sensors, the reason why I have all of this apart again was I was waiting on the motor mounts to come in. So I did wind up replacing all 3 motor mounts. We have a updated carbon seal, we have a new PTO bellow, drive shaft's in, it's aligned, good to go. So pretty much gonna just button this back up. Gonna finish up cleaning. I did remove the shaft that kind of sits and houses the drive shaft. I see no need for it. It's just another failure point. So going to fill the 2 holes that were holding that bracket in with Marine Tex. And other than that, pretty much wrapped up in here. Just going to clean up now that everything's back out. You know, everything in the back that I couldn't get to with that stuff in. So we'll get this buttoned up and then we'll just keep going. All right, guys, time to strip our intercooler so we can install the fizzle. I'll try to get the best angle, but it's tough. So that looks terrible. I don't think it's cracked. It didn't get water, but definitely restricting a lot of flow. So say bye-bye. Well, the big pretty sitting real nice. Let's see how she sounds. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, guys, so if you notice that the battery light was due to that, which is very common on the Jetboats. And sometimes it's this connector, sometimes it's the douche connector, which is for coming right off the stator. So we did wind up replacing these two, and we also relocated our voltage regulator to here with an aluminum bracket, so that way I can get my 4-inch intake on, which will obviously allow more airflow. And that one may still work, so I may use it as a spare, we'll see, just in case. But that's going to be a 4-inch intake. Everything else is pretty good. There's no oil leaks, there's no leaks period. One additional thing I did have to do, and I noticed it when I swapped the trailer, was, and I didn't take a video, but when I dropped it in, obviously the transom was deep and it was below the deck. So I did notice water pouring in through the top. So it's very common on the Sea-Doos. I guess it's common on the Scarabs. But up top, pretty much underneath the rub rail, there is a seam. And that seam looks just like this. So all you have to do is bead silicone, and it definitely helps. It's not perfect, you know, I still have to buff the back end because I ran out of compound, but I did wet sand it and everything else. But all you got to do is this. So if you do get water coming in through what looks like up here in the bilge, put a bead of silicone on, or even 4910 that, and it will definitely solve your issues. Second outing, here we go. So I believe we fixed the voltage issue. Oh yeah, now we're charging at 13.5. Well guys, it was supposed to be a nice day, and it is pretty much torrential downpour. Awesome. We need a longer bimini. Alright, so now that we made it back safe and sound, we're gonna start, which I already did, removing all of this, which I kind of like it, but at the same time it is pretty beat up. So we're gonna strip all of this. So I did a light sanding on the red because I knew that this was gonna come off eventually. So I'm just using a heat gun, also using a rubber wheel, which I kind of beat up from other projects, but until the new ones come in, I'm just gonna heat gun all of this off as best I can. And then we have something a little different going on this, so let's see how it goes. All right guys, so now that we have all the decals taken off. Total nightmare. This thing came in handy. I did try the heat gun, but you know, so whatever. What we're gonna do is, I purposely didn't wet sand this completely, or just sand it period, because I knew I had to take this off. So we're gonna sand this down, buff it out, get all this residue off, and then we are going to try out the new decals. Oh yeah. So pretty much that's how you install, well, that's how I install graphics. You guys can use a roller, use a spongy, squeegee, whatever you want to use. I just do it by hand, really lightly, just to roll it out, and then I'll start pressing on it to kind of just press it onto it. So what I wound up doing was obviously sanding this again, compounding it. I did not wax or polish it yet. I was going to put the graphics on first, so that way it'll stick better to the actual gel coat. So what we're going to do to finish this up is polish and then wax. But I really hate sanding because it's disgusting again. But I would say that looks a lot cleaner. Alright guys, so I was going to wrap the video up there, but the next thing we got to deal with is this cluster F of wires. Now, if you guys can see, there is crimps, there's just random wires everywhere. So I know that one of these amps cuts out, the other one works fine, and I think that's the monoblock 100 up top. That one just doesn't work at all. And basically what happens is, first off, when I turn the radio on, it sounds terrible, and then eventually it just starts working. So what we're going to probably do is, not what we're probably going to do, we're definitely going to swap out everything in here. But until the season's over, I'm not looking to upgrade the speakers yet, but these will be changed to Kicker 8s, and that's going to be a 10-inch MSC, and RGB controlled, obviously. So also have a plan for the head unit along with this backing plate, so that's going to be another thing. But there's a few odds and ends here and there that does have to be taken care of. So let's jump into it and see if we can get all the speakers to work. Alright guys, ignore the mess, but so you guys are going to question, why do I have an MSS and an MSC? So I just got a great package deal on the package, so that's the one reason why I went with this. But honestly, looks pretty sick. So you have that, we have the MWF 10-inch sub, ignore the mess guys, another MSS, and then we have our two MSCs up front, and then our two tower speakers. So I just had them testing off of a regular house amp. I have my 1 gauge OFC copper wire going through. My amps are going to be mounted right in here, and then my Fusion Hideaway as well. So I'm probably going to wind up just blanking off the factory radio location, just because there's really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I may put another remote in there, I may not. I may mount another wireless remote somewhere over here, like easily accessible. but my remote is actually going to go in next to my helm. So gonna get these all wired up, and then I'll show you guys the finished result. All finished up. So we have our fusion head unit here. This is the ERX 400. RGB lights throughout the boat, except for, I did keep the factory blue. That's going to be a next thing. As for the amps, we have our KX 900 and our 1200 here with our hideaway. So I have some things to do, like I still have to remove the factory radio. But just to show you guys, and I'm limited on songs because of YouTube, but right now so I have my two zones, and pretty much that song was Netflix by, it was Believe, just once again copyright things, but everything else is pretty much done. Made a big difference. Let's get this baby out on the water one more time, and let's watch these poker bomb races. Alright guys, so those of you that are wondering how I did the catalytic. So the catalytic, coming from a Sea-Doo background, 2012 single engine boats were the first and only year that Sea-Doo introduced the Bosch ECUs into their jet boats for the single engine. So the Challenger 180 and the Speedster 150. I wound up actually sourcing an ECU and saying, let me just try it. Because pretty much the platform is completely the same. So wound up getting the ECU, but you'll also need the engine wiring harness, PCV, and water box. And the reason why you need the engine wiring harness is because Sea-Doo had, and still does have, what's called the top sensor, a tip over position sensor, and that isn't located on the Scarabs. So I don't think the ECU would have even tried to start because it wouldn't have recognized that sensor. So those are the four main components of what we need to do the catalytic. So now guys, for the cost breakdown. So I got this boat for $10,250, but buying the trailer, selling the original trailer, so I am now into the boat and the trailer only for $11,250. So all of the parts just for the engine and getting this running the way it is, including the catalytic, the engine rebuild, supercharger, ECU, water box, wiring harness, oil cap, fizzle intercooler with hoses, motor mounts, catch can, carbon seal, PTO bellow, and oil and coolant. Total in all, $18,537.98. So adding on all of the additional things that I've done, so the graphics, the speakers, the amps, the radio, so all of that, including, which I didn't have come in yet, the boot for the bimini top I have coming in from the factory, along with the one seat that's torn on the driver's side bow backrest. So total came out to $22,258.23. Now keep in mind, I did sell the factory ECU, I sold the factory cat, and I sold the factory boat, the factory trailer. So all in all, I'm in this for $21,123.78. So I'd say we made out pretty good. Now you guys might say, why didn't you just buy a running boat and this and that? Well, guys, when I rebuild something, I like to do it all myself. I like to go through everything. This boat is completely done, except for maybe a few odds and ends that they may want to add in the future over the winter. So other than that, guys, that's it for this build. It will be featured in a few other videos that I have coming up. As of right now, I'm working on getting something else. This boat has taken up a lot of my time to get it running perfectly. So other than that, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.